What's up there, Workforce? Chris here with Work to Game, and I wanted to take this moment to kind of expand on a topic we talk about in the podcast. Now, the podcast went in a very different direction with this, and is very interesting. Heels versus Babyface. I encourage you guys to watch it on Monday. But for today, I wanted to talk about boycotts. Boycotts in gaming. There's two big boycotts going on right now that I want to take note of, but there's something that happens all the time. So the two big ones going on right now are Fortnite, which is a gameplay-based one, which we see often, right? A developer does something either with a loot mechanic, whether that's loot boxes or something like that, or they actually do something with a gameplay mechanic where it's either too hard to get loot or it breaks the balance of a game or anything like that, and we want something fixed within the game, and until it's fixed, we're refusing to play, or creators are refusing to stream or put out videos on that content. And so Fortnite introduced into their newest season these brute mechs. It's a two-person big mech that can shoot rockets out of it. Picture like Titans from Titanfall. One person can be controlling it, and then they can swap into that. So in single-player mode, it basically is allowing a much lesser player to take out a professional player with little to no reaction from them. And you can imagine what somebody even better could do in it. So it really is shaking the balance of a game that has formed an ecosystem around these top level players. Whether or not it was intended to be that, it could have always been that, hey, you got a 1 in 100 chance you could win anytime. But it's something that players are upset about, and rightfully so. It's drastically shifted the balance of the game. And so there's a boycott like that where we say, hey, I need you to fix this one thing, and it puts them in hot water. And developers in the past have, some of them have just waited for people to get over it, or said, what, if they don't engage in that content, that's fine. We got more content coming out in a few months, and maybe they'll engage in that. You see that in MMOs when there's a raid tier that people don't like. You just catch the next one. And you see it also go the other way, where you see them break and change that. They go back and they say, you know what? Under further concern. This is especially common in games that don't have any form of public test realm or beta before releasing major content. So iterative games. So things like Fortnite or MMOs where there's content being rolled out on an existing title. And so the new patch rolls out and it's gotten very little player feedback, if any. I know like World of Warcraft runs public test servers, but like Final Fantasy XIV doesn't. And so when that content rolls out, if people don't like it, then you end up with hot fixes or patch changes. And some of those may have been planned. We're going to come out with it. We know it's not going to be perfect. And then we plan to make changes. And sometimes it catches the developer off guard and they go, what do you mean you don't like it? Like, we were so excited to give this to you. And so that's your first type of boycott. Fairly common. The second type of boycott is when there is a moral or ethical dilemma going on. And usually these are decided in the court of public opinion before we ever get all the facts, if we ever get all the facts. And so the one that's going on right now, very specifically, is dealing with a YouTuber by the name of supmattos. Basically, in a nutshell, what happened is 2K Games, the makers of Borderlands 3, sent private investigators to his home to ask him how he got access to some stuff like some developer-only stream codes and things like that, which he, of course, got because they left him on the screen in a public test video. So he was far from the only ones to get it. These were well circulated. Lots of people had them. And of course he was excited about the game. So just like with every other leak, if Final Fantasy XIV or WoW came out with their next, what they were going to do with their next expansion today, people would of course leak that. And if there was a way to play it today, people would of course do that. And so that's what happened. And basically 2K, in order to protect their IP, went out and served him a preposterous, 7 copyright strikes, which is more than enough that if all those stood to delete a channel, I think you need 4. And supmattos has taken a break from YouTube. Now, he put his thoughts up. I've watched that video. It's 9 or 10 minutes, and it's very well spoken, very well, and it helps elaborate his side of things. And it's easy to be sympathetic. It's easy to want to support him in this. But regardless of if he'd ever put out his thoughts, in these situations, we see them go one of two ways. We either see the public support the gaming company or they support the player. And it oftentimes, in my mind, doesn't have anything to do with the facts of the event in question. That regardless of what happened here and the fact that it was public information that he used, people would have sided against 2K because they already don't like 2K. So you see this with companies like Activision, EA, 2K, these games where they have a reputation for being a certain way. And you assume 2K games is oftentimes, they've been a bully in the past. And they've been a bully in some ways, and is the public perception by enough people that it's vocal. And so whether or not I feel that way, whether or not you feel that way, doesn't really matter. The Reddits of the world and the big social platforms are going to have this tone just shoved into the argument, filled with bias before we ever get down to the facts of the situation. And so regardless of these two boycotts, not really trying to talk on the specifics of them, I wanted to talk about, like, do boycotts work? Because in the podcast, I kind of simplify it down to, if the game is good, that they really tend to fail because people will just play it. And if they're bad, then we can blame the reason it being, oh, well, I don't want to play it because I don't want to support X behavior, but you weren't going to play it anyway. So it's not like if they changed that behavior or apologize that you would start playing it. It's like, no, if it's a garbage game, it's a garbage game. And so in my mind, that's a really, like, simplified way to look at it. But in a time with cancel culture, it is possible that something gets canceled, and it is possible that these things happen. I just think that you have to pick your hill to die on. Like, you can't just get mad at everything every developer ever does. So if we get mad that they harass this YouTuber, and then they come out with a new loot mechanic, and we say we aren't going to play because of the new loot mechanic, we already said we weren't going to play because of the YouTuber. And so I don't know which of those is more important to you, but you definitely want to kind of pick your battles, because if you say, they fired their lead sound designer and I loved him, right? If Final Fantasy let go of their lead music designer, people would be upset. But if you say you unsubscribe for that, and then they say, we are now going to make half the jobs limited jobs, well, I'm going to unsubscribe for that. Well, you can't unsubscribe. You're already unsubscribed. And so you have to kind of pick that. And so that's my issue with boycotts in general, is that we have a tendency of making a lot about something very small, and then we don't have the ability to make a big deal out of something when it's actually big. Sending out private investigators to harass an individual YouTuber is ridiculous. It's absurd. Introducing a game-breaking mechanic into a game that is like one of the largest streamed games in the world is a poor gameplay choice. And the reason those stand out to me is because I wasn't already looking to boycott those games for other reasons. Now I'm personally not a big Fortnite player, so they don't really have a lot to lose with me. So doing something that makes me say, not playing Fortnite now. Well, I already was only playing Fortnite a handful of times, every so often. I log onto it, I play a couple rounds, and then I'm done. And Borderlands, I really haven't found a lot of time for single player games in the last couple of years. And so no matter how good a game is already a pretty good chance I'm not going to get it. And so they're really not risking anything with me personally, but there are games that do mean something to me that are coming out. WoW Classic means something to me. And, that's something that I really look forward to trying. And Blizzard doing something that I ethically struggle with is something that we've seen a recent example of with the big layoff. And so that's something I really, do I support them? Well, on one hand, I don't want to support that behavior. On the other hand, they took the time to make a long requested project finally. And if they took the time to do it, I want to thank them, because otherwise every time we request something, they're like, hey, you said if we made this, you'd buy it, and then you didn't. So like next time you say if we make something, you'd buy it, why would I listen to you? And so being one of the ones that said, if they came out with Classic, I would try it. I owe them that, right? That's my social contract. And so to kind of get back a little bit on topic here, with boycotts, my only issue with them is just be sure that your boycott really is meaningful, right? So don't boycott games you don't already play. That sends a false message. Because then what happens is if they get 500,000 signatures to fix some feature in some game, and they fix it, and then they only get 100,000 players back, then that makes the next boycott seem really cheap and really nothing. So if you boycott something and they fix the behavior, just realize you've obligated yourself to at least go back and try it. Now, you don't have to go and buy every Borderlands 3 DLC ever or whatever. But if they make it right with this guy, and this was the one reason you weren't going to play Borderlands 3, then yeah, you need to try the game. And if Fortnite takes the mechs out, you need to play a couple more rounds of Fortnite. You don't get to just not play it forever and ever. They took them out. And so that's kind of my thoughts on that. And I don't know what you guys think about it, but I think my issue with Borderlands is that, or my issue with boycotts is that we end up in this cancel culture where like we just cancel something and move on. And we don't think about the just path of wreckage we're leaving behind us and what example that sets for people who are now going to go out and pick up the pieces and say, okay, let's make the next thing. Let's make Borderlands 4. It's like, well, we made Borderlands 4 and we were really careful to treat all YouTubers with respect. And like, we actually encouraged people to use any publicly available info, even if we didn't intend for it to be public. And then nobody plays it. It's like, oh, so it didn't matter if we corrected it. So then why correct it? So we'll just continue to be bullies. And so I just be sure that if you're going to punish bad behavior, that you're willing to reward good behavior. Be sure that if you're willing to say that there is one reason that you're not playing something, that if that one reason gets fixed, that you go play it. And oftentimes, like, if you think like that, I think you realize that there's more than one reason you don't play something. There's you find out like it's like, well, this isn't the only reason I wasn't going to play Borderlands 3, and so I shouldn't be saying #boycott Borderlands 3 for this, because if they fix this, like, that's not the only issues I have with the game. Like, that's not the reason I'm not going to play it. So just try to send a consistent message. It's something that we talked about on the podcast today, and I didn't really get to elaborate on today. And I wanted to sit down and kind of talk about this. It's just an interesting kind of trend that I wanted to speak about while I'm still kind of working on some guides for you guys and some more of our traditional content here for the channel. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Do you like to boycott things? If you boycott them, if they fix the issue, do you feel that's unforgivable and you shouldn't have to go back? Or do you feel that, hey, we called for an action, they took the action, and now I am owed something in that kind of transaction, right? They gave me a behavior, so I owe them a behavior. I said, if you do this, I will play your game. They did it. Am I now obligated to play their game? Or do I get to just keep saying, no, it's the next demand, or should I just, like, ignore them and that's what they get? So let me know. Would love to hear from you. It's a complex issue. So I think I kind of left my thoughts a little simple in the podcast today and just wanted to kind of elaborate. My name is Chris with Works Game. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.
Oh, hello. Were you expecting somebody? Chuck-like? Well, I'll never tell where he is. Only that if you want to see your friend again, you should totally hit subscribe. And maybe even a thumbs up. Thumbs down don't make me happy. And when I'm not happy, something happens to Chuck. I'm not joking. Goodbye. Subscribe. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. See you next time.